Okay, this is the safety unit overview. Um, because of the number of students out due to COVID exposure that are quarantined, I'm creating this as a format to help students who are out of class be able to keep up with the class work. And so we're going to try this in the safety unit. If it works well, we will continue it in the following units. So this is unit one, safety. This unit is taught to all of the three courses, and it will be used to augment the what's going on in class. Okay, so this is the lesson plan format that we will use for each day. So this is what is covered today. I'm just going to highlight this, but I will go through the presentation that you can see. So here are the announcements in terms of how to join certain groups, remind codes to be in the know with what's happening with those groups, and then SPE and TSA will be meeting on Wednesdays. Okay, so for the lesson plan for the day, we're going to talk about why we need to learn about safety. We will take a pre-test today. We will look at the objectives and the definitions and what are some consequences of being unsafe. And the key thing we did this day is to introduce the unit projects and to model what your presentation should look like. And then you guys decided on the safety topic and the teams that you wanted to be in. Okay, so just to start things off, why learn about safety? Because safety is protecting uh, students from injury or worse, and also to protect equipment from damage and the facility from damage. So it's extremely important because we don't want anybody to be hurt or marred or anything like that. Um, and we want to keep everyone safe and keep the facility safe. But in order to do that, we need everybody to understand how to do things safely, to develop a culture of safety, and to help us to keep our school and shop safe. So the first thing everyone needs to do as we start this chapter is to take the pretest. And again, that pretest is found in the safety unit folder in Schoology. So you will need to take the pretest. Don't worry about what you make on that because everybody's getting full credit regardless of what your score is. It's just simply a pretest to see where you start and where we will end. Okay. All right, so the objectives for this unit, we want you to understand why we need safety training. You need to personally understand that it's important, it keeps you safe, it keeps our environment safe. We want to provide the appropriate training and the resources so that you can function safely. And then we also want to test that to understand that you really do understand that before you can operate equipment. And then finally, you need to sign on to a safety pledge and a contract before you can utilize the equipment. So that's our objectives for this unit. So we're going to talk about what safety is and what are some of the areas around home, class, shop that you will have hazards because they're everywhere. We don't want you to think of it just safety is an issue at school, in the shop. It is an issue at home as well. So the things that we learn, we want you to take home and put into practice as well. So some of the definitions that we're working with, you can see here. Safety is being free, being safe and free from danger, risk, injury. And an accident is this occurrence of an unintentional event that causes injury or property damage. So we define a hazard as something that not has happened yet, but it's a potential source of danger. We want to be able to identify potential sources of danger before we ever get to an accident, and we need everybody's eyes peeled to make sure that happens. And then first aid, we want to talk about that immediate temporary care given to a victim before medical attention can be given. Something may happen and you need to know where the first aid kit is, all of the resources we have around the class, so we're going to talk about that. But first aid is what is given at immediately before, while we wait on proper medical care to come. So in class, we talked about the consequences of being unsafe. If you look at the tools there, from X-Acto knives to hot glue guns to aerosols, glue solvents, sanders, drill saws, a lot of things that you could understand the consequences of being unsafe. You can be cut, you can be maimed, you can lose hearing, you can ingest material is bad, you can be burned. It's just so many things. As you look at this list, and in class we would have gone through and talk about that, but there are several things that have some very severe consequences if we don't be safe. So we want to make sure that does not happen. Now, this is the key thing we want to do on this first day, is for you to understand what we want you to do for the safety presentation assignment. So you will choose a tool safety presentation that you're going to do, and you're going to answer these questions thoroughly. So based on the tool that you have, first question is, what is the function of this tool? What is it used for? Second question is, how should the tool be used properly? What's the proper procedure, safeguards, and things you need to know to use this tool properly? The third question is, what are some options for using the tool? Many tools can be used many different ways, and it's not just the one function, but it can function for a lot of different, has a lot of different options that you can change or vary to get different outcomes. And then number 4 is, what equipment allows us to use the tool safely? In other words, what is the protective equipment we need to use when using this tool? And finally, question 5 is, what can happen if we don't use the tool properly? So we want you to explain the outcomes if we don't use it properly. Now, this is a 150-point assignment. It's a summative assignment. And so here's how you get those 150 points. The presentation is going to be pre-recorded. It cannot exceed 5 minutes. And so you're going to create a PowerPoint presentation or some type of presentation, and you're going to record a voiceover to go with that, and that's what you're submitting. So you're submitting a link to the video by the assignment deadline, and that needs to be an accessible link. I would recommend YouTube. If you do the Google Docs, it's very likely that the day of the assignment, when we go to open it, it will not open and you will lose those points. We also want you to upload a PDF of your static presentation by the assigned deadline. So during the day of the presentation, we're going to watch the video, and then you'll have a 5-minute Q&A. I'm looking for it in 2 forms. In the digital form with a narration over it, which is limited to 5 minutes. But because I want you to thoroughly answer this, you may need to have additional information that can be accessed. Now, we also want it in a static format. This may be a poster that we put up in the shop. So you may use, as you see in one of the other ones, you may use a QR code down at the bottom that links to a video. This is particularly important when you're talking about how should the tool be used properly. Though that slide should have a video link that goes into detail on how to use that. You want to adequately address the 5 questions, right? Those are big points. So did you really address the question? And again, because you got a 5-minute limit, the way you do that is to have additional information that I can access either through your digital presentation, that's why the QR code should be hyperlinked, or by pulling my camera out and getting a refresher before I use the tool. Next, provide correct and relevant information from reliable sources. Now, for many of the tools, you're going to be getting information about tools we have in the shop. So for instance, if you're doing the Delta table saw, you should go to the Delta website, the manufacturer, and get information about the model we have. That is your primary source, the manufacturer and the information they have about how to use that particular model. You may augment that by information from other sources, but primarily that manufacturer. Your presentation should be well organized and easy to read. Each member must present at least one slide. If you're in a group, it's okay if one person does 4 and one person does 1, but every member should do at least 1. Again, we already talked about the QR codes that will give more in-depth information are also hyperlinked. So if I'm just looking at your presentation and want to get to it, I can just click on it. But if it's a poster form, I can take my phone out and get that information. And then finally, develop 3 multiple choice questions about key concepts from your presentation. This will be included, one of those questions, in the post-test information. So it's important that as you post your presentation and your link, that other students look at that, because one of the questions will come from your questions. Okay, what I wanted to do was to provide you a sample presentation so you understand what this looks like. Okay, so here I have the tool that I have is an X-Acto knife and utility knife. So the first question is, what is the function of this tool? So, and the other thing, and I don't recall going over this, you should have pictures that go along with the information that you're giving. So here I've talked about the functions of X-Acto knives, that they're used to make straight and curved cuts on thin material. They're used for paper, chipboard, foam board, fabric, leather. They're used a lot in craft and model making and craft projects. So here are an image of the X-Acto knives where it's labeled so you know what that looks like. I also talk about utility knives, which tend to be for tougher, heavier, thicker material. I also point out the fact that if you look at the handles, they allow greater grip and more force, which is helpful in a workshop. So one is kind of more of a workshop tool, one is a makerspace craft tool. So now when I talk about how the tool should be used properly, you notice that I give you step-by-step guides of what to do, how to take off the protective cap, use a sharp blade, cutting mat, all of those things that go step by step. But I also have a QR code that goes to a video. Now, if I was presenting this, which I am not, because of recording it, it's just a little easier. If I click on this, it would actually, it's hyperlinked to go to the video. It's also accompanied by images that help you see what I am speaking about when I refer to the things in the instruction. Now, I made two slides to address the second question. Utility knives, again, you see this is more of a shop setting, but again, here are the step-by-step instructions as well as a video. So you may not go through all of these if you're giving your presentation. You're going to hit the high ones, but you got the video here and the text that explains step by step how everything is done. So that answers the second question. How should this tool be used properly? Now, question number 3, what are some options? We talked about that. So when you talk about X-Acto knives, you have a variety of blades which are used for different things. This shows you the blade, tells you what it's used for, and even gives you some options here. When you look at X-Acto knives, I gave you again a variety of blades. This would be for a different kind of application. Now, you can't be exhaustive, but what you do want to do is to show some of the different kinds. Like here is a blade that you flip around. When the end gets dull, this one snap off. This has a hook feature for cutting materials, perhaps like carpet or linoleum. So that's what you're covering there. Number 4, this talks about what equipment will allow you to use the tool safely. So again, we talked about earlier safety glasses, sharps containers. So here I'm showing you what these are as well as spelling those out. This is the equipment you need to be safe when you're using X-Acto knives or utility knives. And then finally, what happens if you don't use them? And I wanted the pictures to be a little gory because I want you to see the seriousness of it, that if you use this X-Acto knife wrong, you can cut your thumb open or you can slice your finger. These are real things that could happen. I don't say that to scare you, but I do say it to say you need to pay attention. Okay. In class, I reiterated this, but you can go back to that slide and relook at it to see if there's anything you don't understand. All right, so here are the teams. Here are the teams for 1A. And you can stop and see which team you're on, but these are the tools and these are the people for that. Here is 3A. Here is 4A. Here is 1B. Here is 2B. And here is 4B. Okay, we're in the second day. Now again, you notice it's day 2, but it's August 11th and 12th because we have an A and a B day scheduled. So whichever day your class fall on, it'll still be the second day of this unit. That's kind of how it's set up. Here is the agenda for today. Again, same announcements as before. And the lesson plan is talking about establishing a culture of safety. How do we do that? The importance of procedures and personal safety. There's certain things you need to do to keep yourself safe and others. And then we talk about protective equipment. And again, we review some project requirements and the team sign up, and then you have 40 minutes to work on your projects, focusing on the first 2 questions that you should be working on. So again, you will find a lot of resources. In this presentation, I am not going to go through that, but you should go to the hyperlink videos. I would have shown these videos in class, but you should actually go to that and look at them. So we talked about the importance of developing routines, a way of doing things. It's like when you get in the car, the first thing you do is you buckle up. By establishing routines in our workspace, in our class, it helps us to put into practice to make a habit of being safe. So we need to develop those habits. Just like when we come in, the first thing we do is put our book bags on the shelf. That's because the book bags are a trip hazard as people try to go to the bathroom or go through the room. So that's what we're doing there. Number 2, safety training. Those are going to be training that we're going to give you, but also around the room there are signs, there are cheat sheets, there are posters that help guide you and refresh your memory of what things should be done. So those things again are around the room. We actually took a tour and looked at all of the resources that we have around the room, posters that help us to establish a safe culture and a safe environment. All right. So here's some general shop safety videos on Makerspace. You want to watch that and pay particular attention to the rules of what you do and you don't do. And so those you would watch, and you would are responsible for the information in there. Remember, you will have a post test that will cover all of this. So that's why we spread it out over 2.5 weeks to make sure everybody had enough time to get the information. And then as you share information with the class, you're responsible for that as well. Okay, so we talked about procedures, right? Like this poster. If you got scissors, close the scissors, look around before you cut. The blades should be, keep your fingers away from the blades. Don't run with the scissors. You know, it's just things to help you remember. Now, again, some of this you're going to get from your classmates that are dealing with these, but we particularly focused on safety glasses and why that's important. You are expected to wear safety glasses anytime you enter into the shop area, but if we're working on projects with, you should have on safety glasses even in the collaboration space. So we also will hear on this, but here's some resources on paper cutters, X-Acto knives, cutting mats, hot glue guns, and these things are for you to look at your leisure. We also kind of walked around class and looked at where the safety equipment is. We have a safety glass cabinet that is a UV sterilizer cabinet. That would be over to, if you walk out the outside through the shop, is to the left before you get to the door. But we have gloves, we have face masks, we have face shields, we have the respirators, hearing protection, ventilation hood, and again, there's some videos to go along with that to help you understand those safety hazards and how to properly protect yourself by using protective equipment. Now, this is day 2, so students would work here on these first 2 as a group. One of the things I strongly encourage students to do is to exchange information and put the documents that you're working on where everybody has access to it. So if you doing a shared Google Doc or something like that, everybody should have access to it, because in the event somebody gets sick and they're not there, or they move, or anything happens, you're still responsible to submit a project on the date that it is due. So if everybody has access to that, it is possible to do these projects by yourself, but in some cases, like in the first year classes, you have groups that you can work together. All right, day 3, again, the 13th and the 16th. We have announcements. You can see that. And then lesson plan, we're going to talk about fire safety, chemicals, and SDS or MSDS sheets, and then what to do in an emergency. We'll cover that in a second. I'm not going to go through all of that, but you can see the information there. And then you're going to work in the group for about 50 minutes this day. So, some announcements. This coming Wednesday, which will be the 18th, we're having a ice cream social, and we're also going to just have a good time getting to know each other and learn about some opportunities that are offered in the engineering program through the Society for Pre-Engineering, Green Power, TSA, and even the TRIP. So again, we'll talk about some STEM competitions, some after school and summer programs, the electric car competition. We're getting a list of speakers, guest speakers, and we'll even have some information about the trip to Japan this summer. So, in the event of emergency, if there's an emergency in the classroom, you want to first notify the teacher. If I'm the one that's injured, you want to get the teacher next door, Mr. Bukarsi, but don't just have one student go. Have one go there, one go to the nurse, maybe one go to the front office. So if one person doesn't see somebody, you can still get done what you need to do. If you need to administer first aid, please do that and remove the person from danger. We also talked about around the class, we have fire extinguishers. There are 3 in the class. We have 3 first aid kits. We have a shut off switch for electricity in the shop at every exit in the collaboration space in the shop. So there's a little button with a red knob that it will allow you to shut off power. We also went outside and looked at where the defibrillator was, as well as the bleed kit. All right. And also, while somebody's going to get a teacher, if it is a major emergency there's no question that this is an emergency, you need paramedics. Someone dial 911 immediately, as well as going outside, open the shop door and stand there to flag down the ambulance if they come through. All right, so we talked about fire, and there's 3 components to fire: oxygen, heat, and fuel. And so to extinguish a fire, you can just take out one of those elements and that extinguishes. So here's a YouTube video. You definitely need to watch that so you understand the information there. We talked about the classes of fire and what extinguishers you would use for what. Now in our class, the extinguishers are class A, B, and C. It's a combined one. So any of those fires. D is combustible metal. You're probably not going to see that in a classroom setting. And K is cooking oil, and you would not see that in our shop. You might see that in culinary, and they have a special fire extinguisher there for those kinds of fires. But if it's just traditional stuff like wood and paper and things like that, if it's gas, oil, flammable liquids, or if it's electrical, the fire extinguishers we had will work for all of those. And here's the kit for the different kinds. The kind we have, I believe, is dry powder. That's why it fits all of those categories. You would be responsible for this chart and understanding it. Okay, we talked about safety data sheets, or it used to be called material safety data sheets, that go in great detail about how to handle certain equipment. But also, if you look at the back of any of these cans, they have precautions of safety equipment you should wear, warnings that it needs ventilation, it's flammable, it's acidic, you need gloves. But again, if you watch this video, it goes into detail on that. But that's what we covered there. So again, in this day, students worked in groups answering these last 3 questions. And so that was day 3. Okay, here's day 4. So this is where you're going to put your final details on your presentation. So we'll go over some assignment requirements and just to see what questions people have. But the majority of the classes you spent putting the final touches on your assignment. So you should at this point have the presentation done. You can practice the narration, record it. Want everybody to do a self-graded rubric and then submit the assignment. We also can maybe show you how to use the QR code generator. And if you're at home, you can just Google YouTube on that. And then some of the students shared how they were recording theirs by putting it on Google Drive and then using a recorder, a screen capture on the iPhone. Okay, so here's the announcements and so forth. Again, same announcements as before, and we would be meeting on Wednesday as our first big kickoff. All right, so I am also going to just talk about these personal rules for safety. I'm not going to read them to you. You can read them, but these are key. And this is just general rules, you know, anywhere in the class or shop as well. And it's really important that we all do this, and we're all, not only are we doing it, but we're watching and we're in a tactful way helping somebody else be safe. And I know that's not always easy because, you know, correcting a peer sometimes can be difficult, but we need everybody to do that so we're on the same page. All right. Even sitting, it's amazing how many accidents happen each year because students are leaning their chair back and fall, but your posture is important. You spend quite a bit of time in class, and so just sitting correctly over time will help you to focus better, will create less fatigue, and it overall will help you to be healthy. And this is something that doesn't just stop at school when you go to work, or you may have a job that you sit a lot. So working on safe posture and positioning is something we want to build in. All right, then you are going to let's see. All right, you want to get in your groups, and this is where you're going to print your static presentation. Remember, I told you had to have that. So go ahead and print that out so you have that for the Q&A portion. You practice your narration. You record the narration. Go ahead and check, since you got the printout of the static, use your phone to check to make sure it goes to the right video. Make sure on your digital presentation the hyperlinks work. Practice with each other fielding questions. And let everybody do a self-graded rubric and see if you guys are pretty close. And then we'd like for you to submit the assignment this day, this fourth day of the unit. Now, day 5, this is where students are presenting. So basically, we're just going to review. This is what we've been saying all along, what we're looking for. And the assignments are due before class. And I will have that date set that you can't submit it, or you can submit it, but it's going to be late after class starts. In fact, I'll probably put it 11:59 the night before. So you're going to be in this format. You will have 5 minutes for your presentation and 5 minutes for a group Q&A. But by no circumstance will anybody be able to work on their presentation during this time. Everybody will have their laptop closed and will be focused on what the groups are sharing. So that's going to be important. So here is what you're going to be doing. Static review, 5-minute video presentation, 5-minute Q&A, and absolutely no working on presentation during this time. Okay. Day 6 is pretty much some of the same. We'll get most of that done the first day, but we will do that, and we'll take the post-test and the pledge after that. So here is that for the day. We will give your demonstration, and when we finish that, you will take a safety test, and then that will be a post test that you'll take, and then I will have a contract for you to sign, and your parent, that you will pledge to follow the shop rules, you understand them, and that concludes our unit. I hope this has been helpful, um, and for those who are at home.